period.
Only at the end. I don't know what happened. He wouldn't answer my calls. I wrote him a heartfelt letter saying how much I loved him and I wished him well because he was dying. And
At 93, William Shatner has finally stepped forward to address the lingering questions surrounding his late Star Trek co-star, Leonard Nimoy.
we can honor Leonard's death and Maury Hurley's death last year by thinking about it. But the good deeds
That you do.
that we're doing right now will live long.
They shared a bond that soared beyond the final frontier, but their friendship was tested by misunderstandings, professional jealousies, and one notorious fallout. Nimoy's passing left Shatner filled with regret, and fans craving answers.
I felt I had to go to the Red Cross meeting rather than go to his funeral.
Now, Shatner reveals the real story behind their troubled last days, shedding fresh light on one of television's most iconic duos. Friendship and falling out. William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy had one of the most meaningful friendships in TV history. Born on the set of Star Trek and nurtured across decades of conventions, shared experiences, and countless conversations. Despite beginning as rivals who both wanted to stand out, they soon realized they had more in common than they first believed. Shatner often said Nimoy was the best friend he ever had, and for years, the two men were almost inseparable. They would attend fan events together, support each other through personal hardships, and swap stories from their years on set. Nimoy, a recovering alcoholic, tried to help Shatner's wife battle alcoholism. Although she tragically passed away, Nimoy's willingness to step in showed how much he cared about Shatner's well-being off the screen. Their bond was not just a show business relationship. It was a real partnership between two people who grew to depend on each other. Sadly, in the years before Nimoy's death in 2015, their close friendship unraveled in a way that left Shatner grief-stricken and full of regret. One of the biggest factors behind their fallout was Shatner's 2011 documentary, The Captains. During its production, Shatner filmed Nimoy without getting his direct permission. While Shatner may have thought it was just harmless or that Nimoy would not mind, Nimoy ended up deeply offended. This perceived breach of trust hurt him enough that he cut off all contact with his longtime friend. Shatner tried to reach out, but Nimoy would not respond. In those final years of Nimoy's life, the pair never reconciled. When Nimoy passed away, fans were shocked to learn that Shatner did not attend the funeral. Many wondered how two men who had once been so close could end up so distant in such a final moment. While Shatner claimed that scheduling conflicts made it impossible for him to be there, critics questioned why he could not find a way to pay his respects. Later, Shatner wrote a book dedicated to Nimoy's memory, which some found opportunistic since the two had not spoken toward the end. However, Shatner insisted that it was entirely about honoring his friend. Today, Shatner often speaks of Nimoy with admiration, calling him a genuine partner and close ally over many years. The tension that arose might have overshadowed their last chapter together, but their long history of true friendship remains one of the most memorable and moving parts of Star Trek lore. Initial rivalry. Long before William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy became good friends, they were actually rivals on the set of Star Trek. This rivalry did not come from malice, but more from the fact that both men were aiming to shine in front of the camera. Shatner was brought in to star as Captain Kirk after the show's pilot episode was reworked. Nimoy, who played the alien-human hybrid Spock, was the only cast member to remain from that earlier pilot. When the retooled series finally aired, viewers were quickly drawn to both leading men. Kirk was dynamic and daring, while Spock presented a calm, logical approach. The difference in their characters turned out to be the show's magic. Each brought something unique that set them apart from the rest of the crew. However, the real point of tension was the surprising popularity of Spock. Nimoy's portrayal captivated audiences in a way few expected, and soon, he was getting mountains of fan mail. Viewers were intrigued by Spock's struggle to balance his human emotions with his Vulcan logic. In the early days, Shatner could not help noticing how this quiet, mysterious alien figure was stealing some of his spotlight as the show's official captain. Simple things, like who got more attention from fans and producers, ended up fueling that initial sense of competition. Despite these early hurdles, the two men seemed to respect each other on a professional level. Both had sharpened their acting craft in various projects before Star Trek, but it was this futuristic setting that launched them into worldwide recognition. The tension that brewed on set was more about who would become the main attraction than any real dislike of each other. Shatner had big ideas about how to present Captain Kirk as a lively, adventurous leader, while Nimoy felt duty-bound to portray Spock in a calm, reserved way. As the show went on, viewers started to appreciate the on-screen chemistry between Kirk and Spock, and the actors behind them also began to see that their differences made their performances stronger. That rivalry, once a source of jealousy and frustration, slowly blossomed into a personal connection. The two found that they were both committed to the show's success and spent long hours perfecting their scenes. By the time they were done filming the original series, the seeds of friendship had already begun to grow, planting the roots for a bond that would last for decades, until unforeseen events tore them apart late in life. Professional jealousy. Professional jealousy played a big role in how William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy interacted, especially during the early years of Star Trek. While Shatner was the show's heroic captain leading his crew through uncharted space, Nimoy's character quickly became the fan favorite. Spock's silent strength and internal battle between logic and emotion fascinated viewers, who were soon mailing him piles of letters praising his portrayal. Shatner, meanwhile, had expected to be the star of the series. After all, Captain Kirk was supposed to be the face of Star Trek, the brave leader on the bridge. Yet no one could predict how popular Spock would be, and Shatner felt overshadowed by his co-star's sudden rise to fame. In their personal interactions, this envy sometimes flared up. Stories have circulated about moments when Shatner tried to reclaim the spotlight, whether by asking for script changes or by trying to upstage Nimoy in a scene. Small episodes, like Shatner noticing Nimoy receiving more complimentary fan letters, fed his worries that the audience was more drawn to Spock's quiet demeanor than Kirk's bold style. When a big star like John Wayne recognized Nimoy but did not remember Shatner, it apparently drove the knife of jealousy even deeper. Shatner has admitted that he felt concerned about being overshadowed, particularly since Nimoy's calm approach differed so much from Kirk's more flamboyant leadership style. Despite these tensions, the two men still managed to be respectful professionals. They never let their competitiveness go so far that it would destroy a scene or ruin the show's morale. Instead, they learned to use their differences to bring out the best in their characters. Kirk's lively personality and Spock's measured logic proved to be an ideal combination for storytelling. Fans could see the depth of their on-screen partnership, and as the seasons progressed, viewers felt that both characters had earned their iconic status. Over time, that jealousy softened. Shatner recognized how crucial Nimoy's contribution was to Star Trek's success, and Nimoy understood that Shatner's infectious energy added vital spark to the show's premise. They eventually formed a bond that went beyond subtracting each other's lines or worrying about who got the bigger round of applause. Both men realized they stood at the center of a cultural phenomenon, and they wanted to enjoy it without letting envy stand in their way. In many ways, that early conflict of professional jealousy brought them closer, paving the way for a friendship that would define them for the rest of their lives. Pranks and bonding. Before William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy became best friends, they often channeled their rivalry into practical jokes that now seem more funny than harmful. Early on, the set of Star Trek was a place where tensions could flare, and sometimes the actors let off steam by teasing each other. One infamous story involves Shatner repeatedly hiding Nimoy's bike on the studio lot. Nimoy, who valued the bike for quick trips around the set, would find it locked away or placed somewhere inconvenient. Shatner thought it was hilarious to see Nimoy react with mild irritation. But these pranks also hinted at the underlying jealousy Shatner felt because Spock was becoming so popular. Over time, though, these little antics became a stepping stone to a closer bond. Instead of letting their playful conflicts grow into serious grudges, they used them to lighten the mood. Shatner came to appreciate Nimoy's calm frustration, and Nimoy, for his part, recognized that Shatner's tricks were not truly mean-spirited. Both men shared a sense of humor that helped them deal with the daily pressures of shooting a groundbreaking sci-fi series. Their personalities were so different, Shatner being more outwardly expressive, Nimoy more reserved, that the pranks actually served as a bridge, letting them communicate in a way that was lighthearted and fun. It was not all jokes, however. After seeing Nimoy stand up to Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry over a dispute, Shatner realized Nimoy had a strong sense of personal integrity. Nimoy had asked permission to attend a promotional event, and Roddenberry only agreed if Nimoy gave him a cut of the fee. Nimoy refused, and left anyway. Shatner admired that act of self-confidence. In that moment, the two men saw that they could be allies rather than simply competitors. They began negotiating their contracts together, ensuring both were treated fairly by the studio. This cooperation led to deeper trust, and the pranks took on a friendlier, good-natured tone. Contract negotiations. During the early days of Star Trek, William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy discovered that their careers would benefit if they worked together, instead of competing. Though they began as rivals, each trying to earn the spotlight, they eventually realized that there was value in presenting a united front. Their coming together in contract negotiations proved to be a turning point, both for their professional standing and for their personal bond. After all, each actor recognized that the other's contributions were vital to the show's appeal. Kirk and Spock were two sides of the same coin, and fans loved them both in equal measure. By aligning their efforts, Shatner and Nimoy saw that studios had to acknowledge their importance. One defining moment that nudged them toward cooperation was Nimoy's clash with Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry. Nimoy wanted to leave the set early for a paid promotional appearance. Roddenberry agreed, but under the condition that Nimoy give him 20% of whatever fee he earned. Outraged by the demand, Nimoy refused and went anyway. Shatner admired this stand, calling it a bold move that showed Nimoy was not afraid to challenge what he viewed as an unfair request. That very act made Shatner see Nimoy in a new light. He realized that Nimoy's quiet demeanor did not mean he would simply roll over in business matters. Instead, Nimoy knew his worth and was ready to defend it. From that point on, a sense of mutual respect grew between them. While they had once eyed each other warily, each wanting top billing, they began to see that their unity held more power than any lone effort. Their discussions about pay and contracts became more open, and eventually they negotiated as a team. This approach forced the studio to recognize that both actors were central to Star Trek's appeal. Whenever one appeared on the negotiation table, the other stood right beside him to ensure their deals matched in fairness. If Shatner was offered a perk, Nimoy wanted something similar or equal. If Nimoy was promised a bonus, Shatner expected the same. Over time, these joint efforts raised both of their profiles, ensuring that they each received the respect they deserved. Support during personal tragedy. As Star Trek's popularity soared, William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy often found themselves sharing hotel rooms at conventions and appearing side by side for fans around the world. Their closeness moved beyond stage lights and autograph lines, forging a brotherly connection that would hold strong in times of hardship. One of the most significant instances involved Shatner's third wife, Noreen Kidd, who battled alcoholism in the late 1990s. Nimoy, who was himself a recovering alcoholic, stepped in to offer help and guidance. Shatner later recalled how Nimoy tried to counsel Noreen, hoping his own experience with addiction could steer her toward recovery. Nimoy's heart was in the right place. He was living proof that a person could fight through those struggles and come out stronger. Unfortunately, despite Nimoy's best efforts, his advice and care weren't enough to save Noreen. In 1999, she tragically drowned in their pool, a devastating event that left Shatner reeling. Though Nimoy couldn't change what had happened, he was still there to support his friend. He made it clear that Shatner wasn't alone, and offered solace during a time when the actor felt lost and broken. That gesture spoke volumes about Nimoy's character. He had experienced the lows of addiction firsthand, and understood how crucial it was to have a stable, caring presence during vulnerable moments. Nimoy's willingness to extend a helping hand showed Shatner that their friendship was more than just two famous co-stars bonding over a hit television show. They were genuinely invested in each other's well-being. Shatner often described this period as one of the hardest times of his life. And yet Nimoy remained a comforting figure who encouraged him to keep going. In the aftermath, the two men grew even closer, bound by the shared reality that life was unpredictable and often cruel. Conventions and TV reunions no longer felt like mere fan activities. They were chances to stand with a friend who had proven his loyalty in the darkest hours. Their camaraderie became a beacon for fans, demonstrating that the on-screen relationship between Kirk and Spock was mirrored in the real world. It was a reminder that even in Hollywood, where egos and envy can tear people apart, authentic friendship does exist. Documentary incident. Despite their deep bond, William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy were ultimately driven apart by an unfortunate misunderstanding in 2011. Shatner was working on a made-for-television documentary called The Captains, an idea meant to explore the various actors who led Star Trek crews across different series. Naturally, Nimoy, who had been at Shatner's side from the original series onward, was a clear addition to the project. However, what should have been a light-hearted and celebratory moment turned into the final wedge in their friendship, one that would remain until Nimoy's passing in 2015. According to accounts, Shatner filmed Nimoy for the documentary without securing his explicit permission. Nimoy apparently felt blindsided when he learned that footage of him would be included without a formal heads-up. Shatner assumed Nimoy wouldn't mind, given their long history of working together. But Nimoy saw it differently, feeling that his trust was being taken for granted. This perceived betrayal cut deeply, especially since Nimoy valued privacy and believed he deserved the basic courtesy of being asked before being filmed. Their previously strong bond had masked some lingering issues, and this small but significant act unveiled unresolved tensions dating back to their Star Trek days of rivalry and competition. When Nimoy confronted Shatner over the incident, Shatner initially thought Nimoy was joking, or would eventually calm down. But Nimoy was serious, and he cut off contact, refusing to speak or exchange pleasantries with Shatner from that point forward. Shatner, blindsided himself, tried to apologize and reach out, but Nimoy never responded positively. As the years went by, Shatner grew increasingly anxious, realizing their relationship might not heal. Even when Nimoy's health began to decline, he still seemed unwilling to reconcile. Shatner hoped that time might smooth things over, but Nimoy remained firm. Nimoy's death in 2015 hit Shatner hard, especially because they had not mended fences. Shatner did not attend the funeral, which puzzled many fans who remembered how close the two men had been. He later attributed his absence to scheduling hurdles, though critics questioned why Shatner hadn't made more effort. Feeling the weight of regret, Shatner tried to honor Nimoy in a different way by writing a book dedicated to him, though some accused him of exploiting the situation. Regardless, Shatner said it was his way of celebrating Nimoy's legacy and the decades of memories they had formed together. Tragically, the documentary incident stands as a reminder that even the closest friendships can fracture over a single miscommunication, cutting short what could have been a final chapter of renewed harmony. Unresolved estrangement.
Did I ever think that I would have the honor? So what? I don't know what I'm going to say next.
William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy had weathered many ups and downs, but their bond truly broke during the final years of Nimoy's life. Despite having been the best of friends for decades, they ended up not speaking to each other as Leonard's health declined. The key incident that drove them apart stemmed from Shatner's 2011 documentary called The Captains. During the filming process, Shatner supposedly recorded Nimoy without securing his permission. Nimoy, known for his calm demeanor, viewed this act as a betrayal of trust, especially since their mutual respect ran so deep. Feeling blindsided, Nimoy chose to cut off all communication rather than hash out the issue. For Shatner, this situation was both confusing and painful. At first, he believed Nimoy might be joking or simply overreacting. He never imagined his longtime co-star would choose to end their friendship over what Shatner saw as a minor oversight. However, Nimoy's silence made it clear that the wound was real and deep. Shatner tried to reach out multiple times, but he was unsuccessful in repairing that break in their relationship. As the months turned into years, fans began to notice the distance between the once close pair, sparking rumors and concerns about what had happened behind the scenes. When Nimoy passed away in 2015, many people were shocked that Shatner did not attend the funeral. Their confusion was understandable. How could someone who had publicly called Nimoy his dearest friend skip such an important event? Shatner cited scheduling conflicts and other logistical hurdles, but the general public remained skeptical. Critics wondered if Shatner was still stung by Nimoy's refusal to speak to him, or if Shatner simply couldn't bring himself to face the reality of his friend's absence. In any case, The image of Shatner missing Nimoy's final farewell left a cloud of questions that remain unanswered. In an attempt to honor Nimoy, Shatner later wrote a book devoted to exploring their friendship and the impact they both had on Star Trek. Some labeled the gesture opportunistic, pointing out that the two stars had not reconciled and hadn't spoken for about 5 years before Nimoy's death. Others believed it was Shatner's heartfelt way of processing his grief and reaffirming how much Nimoy had meant to him over the years. Regardless of the debates that swirled, what remains certain is that the friendship between these iconic actors ended on a tragic note, leaving as many questions as memories. Unresolved rift continues to captivate fans, reminding everyone that even the strongest bonds can crumble under misunderstanding. Shared origins on Star Trek.
Best friend.
Long before they became famous as Captain James T. Kirk and Mr. Spock, William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy were just two actors looking for their break in a competitive TV world. Their paths first crossed while filming an episode of The Man from UNCLE in 1964. But it was Star Trek that would truly bring them together. The original pilot, created by Gene Roddenberry, didn't include Shatner at all. Instead, Nimoy, who portrayed Spock, was the only cast member to carry over when the studio rejected the first version of the show. Executives found the pilot too serious and asked Roddenberry to try again. Shatner entered the scene after suggesting the show adopt a lighter tone. Roddenberry appreciated Shatner's energy and agreed to have him lead the reworked series as Captain Kirk. Shatner's flair for drama and humor contrasted beautifully with Nimoy's portrayal of Spock, an alien-human hybrid torn between cold Vulcan logic and hidden human emotions. This new dynamic gave Star Trek its most legendary on-screen duo. While Kirk embodied action and spontaneity, Spock stood for restraint and rational thinking. Their characters represented two sides of the same coin, providing endless storylines and instant chemistry that viewers loved. Nimoy's role as Spock began as something of a gamble, part Abraham Lincoln, part benevolent alien from 1950s sci-fi films, and even influenced by Harry Belafonte's understated stage presence. The combination made Spock stand out, eventually eclipsing all expectations. Audiences were drawn to Nimoy's controlled performance, finding his stoic manner oddly magnetic. Meanwhile, Shatner's Captain Kirk was courage personified, bold, daring, and always ready for adventure. Together they formed the heart of Star Trek, leading the Enterprise crew into uncharted territory each week. Though both actors were seasoned professionals, Star Trek thrust them onto a global stage. They spent long hours on set, facing tight budgets, wearing futuristic costumes, and delivering lines full of futuristic jargon. Over time, they developed distinctive approaches to their roles. Nimoy's thoughtful quietness often served as a counterbalance to Shatner's brisk energy. Even after the show ended, their synergy endured in multiple spin-off films and continued to capture the imagination of fans at conventions worldwide. In a way, Kirk and Spock became cultural icons representing curiosity, exploration, and the quest to understand the unknown. The fact that both actors bonded, not just as colleagues but as friends, only added to the magic. Their shared origins on Star Trek stand as a testament to the power of television to bring people together and shape popular culture for generations to come. Legacy of friendship.
So this dear, dear friend of mine went to his death, and I don't know why I couldn't comfort him in his last moments.
Despite the rocky patch that ultimately drove them apart, William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy built a legacy of friendship that transcends any single argument, or even the boundaries of this world. Early on, their relationship was defined by playful rivalries and professional jealousy. Shatner, officially the series lead, battled with doubts when Nimoy's Spock became the unexpected favorite of the fans. Yet as filming progressed, the two discovered that their personalities, while different, actually fit together in ways that improved their work. Off-screen, their banter and pranks slowly shifted from tension to amusement, reflecting a genuine fondness that even they might not have predicted in the show's early days. Their camaraderie peaked as they attended countless Star Trek conventions, where fans flocked to see Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock in person. Both men enjoyed the spotlight, recounting behind-the-scenes stories and teasing each other in front of packed auditoriums. Their friendship wasn't limited to publicity events, though. They genuinely looked out for each other's well-being. When Shatner's wife struggled with alcoholism, Nimoy, who had survived his own battle with addiction, stepped in to offer help and support. This act of compassion became one of the defining moments of their connection, illustrating that their bond was personal rather than purely professional. As time marched on, the world changed around them, yet Shatner and Nimoy remained cultural fixtures. They starred in multiple Star Trek films and made guest appearances together, often poking fun at the popularity of their iconic characters. Their bond symbolized the best of what Star Trek promoted: a belief in unity, exploration, and cooperation in the face of challenges. Fans saw them as real-life ambassadors for the values the show tried to convey, including friendship amid differences. Sadly, the final chapter of their relationship was marred by misunderstandings, culminating in their eventual estrangement. However, the decades of laughter, joint successes, and mutual respect far outweigh the unfortunate end. Shatner has repeatedly stated that he still cherishes those shared memories, calling Nimoy a once-in-a-lifetime friend. Even if their story finished on a painful note, the earlier chapters remain an inspiring example of how two people can overcome jealousy, competition, and personal struggles to form an enduring partnership.